frozen blueberries, honey. It must be time to make blueberry mead. I have a recipe here. I worked this up today. Using the ingredients I have, I decided to make 3 gallons of blueberry mead. I'm using 9 pounds of honey. Very good, clean tasting honey. No bad flavors. Anything bad tasting in the honey will make the mead taste even worse. I have 6 pounds of blueberries, which I have frozen. Freezing breaks them down so you don't have to crush them, and they ferment a lot more completely. Now you'll need a pack of yeast, a Mead champagne or wine yeast. I'm also using 3 teaspoons of yeast nutrient. Blueberries and honey are both hard to ferment, so some yeast nutrient will help. Also, pectic enzyme powder, 1.5 teaspoons. And about 2.5 gallons of water. No chlorine in the water. Chlorine is not good for wine or beer or mead or anything. I have my honey, 9 pounds, all weighed out, and I've tasted it. It's good quality, good clean flavor, and that's what I need for mead. The blueberries have been frozen. I have them sitting here. I don't know how thawed they're going to be before I use them. It wouldn't hurt to thaw them a little, crush them slightly. But they're okay, just as they are. Here's the procedure. I'm going to add a gallon of water to a stock pot. 3 gallons or larger. I have it on the stove right now heating up. I'm going to stir in the honey carefully. Try not to burn any of it. Heat it all up to about 180 degrees. Skim off any of the foam. Then carefully add my blueberries without splashing. Turn off the heat. Hopefully it should be hot enough to sanitize everything. And while that's cooling down, I'm going to put 1.5 gallons of cool water in the fermenter, and I'm going to carefully pour my stock pot ingredients into the fermenter. Stir it to mix it up and let it cool down to room temperature. And when it gets there, I'll put in the yeast nutrient, pectic enzyme, and the yeast. I'm going to be fermenting in a 5-gallon fermenter today. Cleaned and sanitized it. My honey, I'm going to very carefully, slowly pour into the stock pot here. Already getting my water hot. Probably turn the heat off while I do this, because it's easy to burn honey. You want to just very carefully pour it in and stir it up, because it'll stick to the bottom. See, it just runs straight down there. Someone need 2 hands to do this while I carefully pour it in and stir it up. I don't want to burn any honey. Get all my honey put in and get it heating. All the honey has been added to the water. It's heating. I have the berries wrapped up. I've been heating the honey and water slowly to give me more time to get my berries to thaw just slightly. And it looks like I'm up to about, let's see, should be about 180 by now. I'm hoping that's hot enough to give me the sanitation I want. The berries will cool it down. I don't want to cook the berries though. I just want to shock any bacteria out of them so my yeast can take over. Well, there's about 180 degrees. I'm going to take the berries and very carefully lower them in here. If you have a bigger pot than this, it would be a good idea. 3 gallons is marginal. A 4 or 5 gallon pot would be better. Let me get the berries and gently put them in so as not to make a gigantic mess. I'm hoping everything will fit. This is a marginally sized stock pot. I think we'll be okay. You always have to be conscious of volumes, what containers you're working with. I want to put the lid on that. Let that sit for a minute or two. And I want to turn the heat off. And while that's sitting there, I'm going to fill my fermenter with some cool water. I now have 1.5 gallons of cool water in the fermenter. The berries steeping in the hot honey water mixture. Now I'm going to have to be very careful placing this into the fermenter. I will probably use a finger to hold this bag. Something like this, while I carefully pour out most of the liquid. That's just so my bag doesn't flop out of there and make a big mess. This should be fun. I'm going to pour this into the fermenter now. I only made a small mess, which is a good thing. So I have a good volume. I didn't lose very much when I was pouring it. And it is a good idea to hold on to that bag. It will fly out of there. I've learned that the hard way. Well, the temperature, I've been letting it cool down here. It's down to about 90, a little below 90. So that is cool enough to put in yeast. I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. I have yeast nutrient, 3 teaspoons, which is also 1 tablespoon, and the pectic enzyme powder, 1.5 teaspoons, which happens to be half of a tablespoon, which I happen to have a half tablespoon spoon. Comes in handy sometimes. And I have yeast. I'm using the EC1118. I use it for a lot of things. It's been rehydrating in some warm water, and it's about ready to be stirred and pitched into the must here. While it was cooling, I spooned out enough for a sample in my hydrometer test jar. The reading I get is approximately 1.100. And I'm going to record that number, 1.100, is equivalent to about 13% potential alcohol, which is good. That's about where I like it. Well, time to put in the rest of the ingredients here. Put my yeast nutrient. You need some yeast nutrient. You might even need yeast energizer if it doesn't ferment well. Here's my pectic enzyme powder. Honey and blueberries are both somewhat difficult to ferment. So that's why most recipes call for yeast nutrients, things like that. And if you do have trouble with fermentation, just give it a good stir. That usually gets things going. So here's my yeast. I'm going to pour it in here too. Try to get most of it. Then remove my handy thermometer here. Stir everything in. And then I'm going to put on the lid and the airlock and watch for bubbles to indicate the start of fermentation. The color of this stuff is already very interesting. It smells really good. The lid has been firmly attached and the airlock is half full of water. Now it's just a matter of waiting. It has been about 16 hours since the yeast was added, getting a nice steady stream of bubbles indicating fermentation is underway. While this is actively fermenting, every day I will be removing the lid to stir and push down the fruit bag, because the fruit bags float to the top and you need to keep them immersed at least part of the time to get all the flavor and color out of them. So I'm going to do that right now. I removed the lid and the fruit bag has floated to the top. The bubbles get in it and it floats up. You hear the fizzing sounds of fermentation underway. All the little carbon dioxide bubbles. I'm really just trying to shove this down in there, keep it moist. Try to get all the goodness out of those berries. The color is excellent. Really nice blueberry color to it. I could use a bigger spoon. Push it down further. I'll do this every day until fermentation stops. And when that's done, then we'll drain the wine out of the bucket. This should go in for about a week. I reinstalled the lid and the airlock. I will take it off and stir tomorrow. It has been 2 days since the yeast was added. Time to do my daily stirring and pushing my fruit down. You can do this up to 3 times a day, or even more if you feel like it. 1 to 3 times should be plenty. The more you do it, the more flavor and color you'll get out of your fruit. Now these were still slightly frozen when I put them in here at the beginning. It's a little easier to work with them if you let them thaw completely before making your mead. And so I didn't really get to smash them very much. Once they're frozen, you don't need to crush them very much anyway. It really breaks down the fruit. But I'm going around here and I'm kind of pushing them up here on the edges and just crushed them a little bit more. It doesn't hurt to smash the fruit really well. I finished crushing the berries, stirred and shoved them down into the liquid, reinstalled the lid and the airlock. I'll check it again tomorrow and every day as long as it's actively fermenting, and shove the fruit down into the liquid at least once a day. It's been 12 days since the yeast was added. Fermentation is nearly complete. It may still continue to bubble slightly for a long time. Sometimes mead will do that. For the most part, it's finished. So I'm going to pull off this airlock, and right now I'm just going to park it down here in this stopper I got. I'm going to use that stopper and this tubing and a 3-gallon carboy, which have all been cleaned and sanitized. This is a plastic carboy. It's designed for beer and wine. It's made out of the good plastic. It's not supposed to leach anything. And it's 3 gallons in capacity, which I hope to fill. Now since I've pulled this out, I'll be able to let some air flow down through while I open the little faucet here to fill up my hydrometer jar here. See what the finishing gravity is. My hydrometer shows about 0.996. Turn it a little bit here, maybe you can see it. There it is. The 9-4 line's visible, so sighting underneath of it would be about 0.996. I take that value, my finishing gravity, 0.996, subtract it from my starting gravity. I take that number, the difference, multiply it by a constant value of 131, and it gives me the approximate alcohol by volume of 13.6%. A little on the strong side, but pretty good. I've tasted this and it is phenomenal. It is really delicious. The honey was good, the berries were really flavorful, and the combination has been great from what I can tell so far. I'm going to open up my valve here, faucet, spigot, whatever you want to call it, and slowly run my wine down into my carboy. With any luck, I'll have about the right volume. Here's what it looks like inside the bucket. The color is really good. I pushed the fruit down every day, stirred it, smashed it a couple times, smashed the berries against the side of the bucket. And it's really turned out well so far. The 3-gallon carboy is full. I had good volume. There's the stopper and the airlock. Here's what's left in the bucket. There is a small amount of liquid, which I am going to pour off and drink in the near future. It has a very good flavor. Even this early in the process, good ingredients makes a good final product. I'm just going to let this sit for 1 month and let it clear, and I'll probably rack it then. How many times I rack it depends how clear it looks, how much sediment it's dropping. I'm guessing about 2 rackings before I bottle, but I'll see. Time will tell. There was well over a quart of liquid left, so I need to modify the recipe. At the point where I had 1.5 gallons of cool water in the fermenter, I need to change that to 1.25, a gallon and a quart. Volumes are always a tricky thing, and you have to make adjustments as you go. Another month has passed by. It's time to rack the mead for the second time. After 1 month, rack second time into another carboy. That's today's step. I have a clean, sanitized carboy, the racking cane and tubing. I'm going to siphon from this one down into that one. The way I do my siphoning is to fill my tubing and cane with water, and then I just jam the cane into this top one while I drop the tubing into the bottom one. The water rushes out, creates suction, and gets a good siphon going. There's a lot of different ways to do a siphon, but that's how I do it. There's all kinds of little gadgets you can buy that'll start the suction. The old-timey way was use your mouth, but that invites a lot of germs getting into your wine that you don't want. Some people gargle with vodka first. I don't know if that helps or not. Probably makes it more fun, I suppose. Well, anyway, I'm going to get my siphon started. Get this stuff racked. I have my tubing and racking cane full of water. See if I can get a good siphon started here. Oh, there it goes. I want to try to minimize splashing and not pick up the sediment. Try to watch very closely. This has a beautiful color. Very clear and bright looking already. Who knows, I may be able to bottle it the next racking. It's hard to tell sometimes, especially with something this dark. The thing I have to watch is not to overfill the bottom carboy. Since I add a small amount of water in my tubing and racking cane, it increases the volume by just that small amount. I have to watch that very closely when I get to the end. This stuff smells really good. Small sample I tasted really good too. Try to move this and just tilt it just enough. Try to get all the liquid. There's nothing like the smell of blueberries. Add some good honey to that, and it's hard to go wrong. I've made many batches of beer, mead, wine. But blueberry mead is right up there among my favorites. There's nothing much better. Getting close to the bottom. I have to watch my sediment here and don't want to get any of it. Oops. I'll stop. Well, it almost filled my other carboy. I left some behind. I didn't want to get that sediment, so I ended up losing a little bit of mead, which I'll carefully pour off and drink. This is what I want. Good clean mead. Now when it's not quite filled to the top, I'll add a little water just to get rid of the extra airspace. The carboy was topped up with water to bring it from here up to about here. That is to minimize the amount of oxygen in the carboy. Installed my sanitized clean stopper and airlock with water. I'm going to set this aside for one more month and then decide what to do with it. Time marches on. It's been well over a month now since the last racking. I've been looking at my blueberry mead here. It looks really nice. It's hard to see since it's so dark, but it looks pretty bright when I shine a flashlight through it. And I don't really see much of anything in the way of sediment, so I decided to bottle it today. The mead is flowing into the bottling bucket. I did want to mention that you want as little oxygen as possible. You don't want it splashing or bubbling. Try to keep a nice splash-free flow. And I'll get this all transferred here in just a couple minutes. Everything has been transferred to the bucket. I have tubing and the bottle filler attached. All I need to do is gently drain the liquid into my bottles. This is what was left in the carboy. Just a tiny amount of sediment, just the barest little bit, small amount of liquid. And I have my corks and corker ready to go. I did mention I use sulfites to sanitize my equipment. If you don't want any sulfites at all in your whole process, you'll have to find another way to sanitize. There are other materials and methods, and I'm not going to go into that right now. I've not used any sulfites in the production of this mead, and I am not going to add any when I bottle. If you're concerned about the preservation of your mead, it wouldn't hurt to crush and add 1 Campton tablet per gallon. That all said, I'm going to get started filling bottles. I just have to turn on my spigot down here to a nice medium slow rate. I don't want to splash or make a lot of bubbles. The first one is going to have some bubbles. It's just hard to avoid. And if I do bottle something with a lot of air in it, I'll put a little mark on my cork just so I'll know. And I'll try to drink that one first. So I just push down on the filler. And like I said, I'm going to get some air in the first one. The rest of them should be mostly air free. The idea is that oxygen will break down the mead. It does get oxygenated like beer can. So fill it to the top, and the little gravity held tip will stay closed, and I just got to fill the rest of them now. This is the final result. 15 bottles of blueberry mead. I print out and apply removable labels, and I'll lay these down to store them. It's been 1.5 years now since I bottled this blueberry mead. That's what happens. Time goes by. Before you know it, you have some fully aged, yummy stuff to drink. So I'm going to taste this stuff. I already have a pretty good idea how it's going to be. I've been trying it along. Has a really nice blueberry color. Not super dark. It does let light through it. It's a nice aroma. It smells like blueberries. I can definitely taste the blueberries. It's semi-dry. It's not really extremely dry. It's slightly tart. Some of the berries have a little bit of sourness to it. It's not too bad. It's actually quite thirst quenching. When I first drank this, I thought, well, I don't know. I'm not sure how well I like that, but after I drank a glass, I wanted another one. After I drank 2, I wanted a third one. It really grows on you. It's a nice, dry, not really completely dry. There's just a hint of sweetness, not much. I'm happy with the way it turned out. It's been 1.5 years in the bottle, and actually there's not much of it left. I've been drinking it along, testing it. If I was going to change anything on this recipe, I might use maybe just a few less blueberries, I don't know, or maybe about the same amount. Maybe up the honey a little bit. The blueberries kind of overpower the honey. It doesn't have it has honey flavor for sure, but you don't notice it right away. Well, I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. Use good sweet blueberries and plenty of honey, and you might end up with something that's hard to sit down. That stuff's good. Well, I think this is the end of my video finally. Maybe I'll finally get it edited. It's going to take me a couple of years. Well, thanks for watching.